pandemic, challenges in the Indonesian geothermal industry. The webinar is organized by Asia Webinar. This webinar will consist of two parts, starting off with individual topics from our key speakers and a short panel discussions. We are very honored today to have a very experienced three speakers of the geothermal industry who have took their personal time out to be with us today. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Ronnie Harahap, the head of Geothermal Engineering and Environment Subdirectorate, Ministry of Energy and Resources, Republic of Indonesia, or ESDM. Mr. Ronnie will be speaking on behalf of Ms. Ida Nuryatin Finanari, who have an urgent meeting today. Second speaker will be Mr. Priyandaru Effendi, the President of Indonesian Geothermal Association, or INAGA. And the last speaker will be Mr. Florian Kit, the Energy Specialist, Asian Development Bank, Indonesia. We will start off with our first speaker and would like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Ronnie, who will be presenting Weathering the Pandemic, Challenges in the Indonesian Geothermal Industry. Mr. Ronnie, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. It is an honor for me to join this meeting. But above all, I would like to convey our director apologies, the Ibu Ida Nuryatin Finari, since she's not able to join our webinars today. So she assigned me to represent her at this webinars. Okay, for the next 10 minutes, I will try to deliver a brief presentation regarding the geothermal development in Indonesia, mostly focusing on the situation after the pandemic or during the pandemic COVID-19 in Indonesia. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our national energy plan in Indonesia for the next 25 or until 2050 target. We can see that last year, the renewable energy shares takes about 9% on the left circle. And in the middle one, this is the target for 2025. We have stated on the national regulation that it has to be achieved 23% for new and renewable energy 2025. Yeah? So about 5 years from now, our current position around 9%. And then until 2050, it will be 31%. So this is the national energy policy that needs as our guidance, government and also for private sector, for developing our energy sector for the next 20 or 25 years from now. Okay, next slide. On the next slide, I would like to give a more deep into the national energy mix, focusing for the renewable energy. As you can see on the chart on the left side, this 9% has that we have achieved today in Indonesia. Actually, you can see there is a strong development during 2015 until 2019. During the 4 years, we have achieved some big step on the percentage of the total from our national energy mix. This is due to the acceleration that the government has launched for the previous 4 or 5 years before. So we are still optimized to achieve the target for 23% in 2025. Although it's some says that it's too ambitious for achieving those targets, 23%, but we have a lot of opportunities that we can manage if we manage it right in the correct way, in the way to achieve the 23% for renewable energy in 2025. Okay, next slide. On this slide, I will give some overview regarding our energy mix focusly for the power. Today, our installed capacity for renewable energy around 10.4 gigawatt installed capacity today. It consists of several renewable energies such as geothermal, hydro, wind, biogas, and also waste. 10.4 gigawatts today, and this capacity will increase um, gradually until 2025 to achieve the 23% in terms of also in terms of power generation. Okay, next slide. This is our current status, Indonesian status compared to other countries in Asia. Yeah. For geothermal sectors, you can see that Indonesia is the first rank in Asia for developing geothermal as a power. In the world, we are the second largest country that utilizes geothermal for power production. So, and then the third one is Philippines. So we are on the right track to achieve that in 2024 or 25. Indonesia will be the largest country that utilize geothermal for power in the world. Right now, or today, the largest country is United States with installed capacity around 3.5 gigawatts geothermal power plants. And we are on the way to surpass the United States to achieve more than 7,000 megawatts on 2025. It's a big target, big job, a lot of tasks to do, but we are optimistic to achieve those targets. And in terms of biomass, Indonesia is the second rank in Asian. For hydro, we are not the highest. Vietnam is holds share around 27%. This is the highest share in Asian countries. And for solar and wind, highest in Asian is Thailand. We are still left behind in solar, but we have some programs in government of Indonesia already developed some programs to boost the solar power, for example. And then also for wind, not significantly significant for in terms of capacity in Asian, but we have successfully delivered the first uh, uh, wind power in Sulawesi Island, and followed by the next one also in Sulawesi Island for the wind farm power generation. So for the target, the shares for renewable target 22% in 2025, and right now our position for renewable target is 13.4. This is the target. Our current position is 9.1% actually. So there are 3 or 4% gap between the target, renewable target, and the realization today. And in terms of CO2 emission reduction, we have stated as our commitment in COP21 Paris statement that our President Bapak Jokowi already stated that Indonesia will achieve 340 million tons CO2 reduction in 2030. 2030, 340 million ton emission reduction from CO2. Okay, next slide. And this NDC target, you can see where will the reduction come from renewable energy, also energy efficiency, and implementing of clean technology, also fuel switching, and post-mining reclamation. The 340 million tons will come from these 5 sectors. Basically, these 5 sectors will be our main focus to achieve this NDC target. Okay, next slide. Challenges in renewable energy focused for power generation. Basically, there are uh, lots of challenges, but if we can classify those challenges in main challenges, we come out with 6 main challenges in renewable power plants in Indonesia. The first is the price. Probably in other countries also face the same challenges, that the prices uh, for renewable energy have to uh, head to head with other kind of power resources such as oil and gas, maybe coal, that comes with lower price compared to renewable energy. So the price is the first main challenge. And then the second is, this is specific for Indonesia because some areas, you know, that Indonesia consists of 70,000, more than 70,000 islands. So we have some areas that the infrastructure specifically for the transmission line is not been developed well. So although we have good resources, for example, on geothermal in eastern part Indonesia specifically, particularly, but we haven't managed to develop the infrastructure for such as a transmission line well on that side. So it's become one of the challenges. We cannot deliver the power or develop those resources in the way that we have calculate the resources on that area. So undeveloped transmission and distribution line is one of the main challenges. The second one in Indonesia, and then the 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 unique of the renewable energy. Most of this kind of energy are intermittent. Not to mention the geothermal or and hydro. Yeah? But other than geothermal and hydro, these are intermittent power plants. It means that we have to prepare some spinning reserve to supply if the power from the renewable energy power plant need to be lower than it plans. So intermittent power plants become one of the biggest challenge, the main challenges. So we have to manage how to set the transmission or manage this transmission. And then the fourth is least cost and higher capacity factor for power plants. For example, hydro and geothermal. Most of these two kind of power plants are located in conservation area. Some of it is in forestry, but other situation located in conservation areas such as cultural heritage that uh, uh, we cannot build our power plants on that side. So this is the fourth major challenges for renewable in Indonesia. And then the fifth is specifically for biomass. Actually, the biomass face some issues regarding the sustainability or the stability for fuel supply. We know that sometimes in terms of biomass and biogas, there are some people say that, or some speakers say that maybe there will be conflict between biomass and food, for example. But if we take a look deeper to the program that been launched by the government of Indonesia, you can see that how we share the biomass energy sector, I mean the development in bioenergy, and also compared to the food sector, that both of these sector will be running fast without conflicting each other. Yeah? So we manage how to develop these two kind of sector. But this is the fifth main challenges for renewable energy in Indonesia. And the last one is issues about the readiness of land acquisition, including in this part of or this classification is the licensing and the price. Yes, this is the main challenges in renewable energy in Indonesia. Okay, next slide. On this slide, I would like to bring our focus on the pandemic COVID-19 effect to the renewable energy sector in Indonesia. There are some challenges also rise up during this 6 months after the pandemic has hit Indonesia, and it gives some effect, but I will explain what we can do to manage the effect so it will not bring too many bad effect actually to the sector, the renewable sector. The first challenge is the supply chains. We know that the situation, the pandemic situation, push us not to or to implement the new normal situation. Yeah. There are some limitation regarding the mobilization, including people and materials that causing a delay to some project because we cannot mobilize our expert, cannot mobilize the tools and the materials to build the project. So there are some delays on some project. We have to admit that one. So basically, the delay will be transferred as cost, extra cost. So this is the first challenge. Limitation, physical distancing cause some delay, and it will be uh, look as extra cost. And then the second challenge is the timeline. Yeah? We know that the incentive constraint and the target. Yeah? Uh, since that we are already on the way to compose some of new incentive for the renewable energy. This situation, this pandemic situation, pushed the government to remanage and rethinking about the incentive that need to be uh, uh, given to the renewable energy. This challenge related to the next one, which is the third challenges, is uh, uh, on the budget relocation. After this pandemic hit Indonesia, the government has to reallocate our national budget, and most of our budget right now is focusly to manage and to handle the pandemic situation. So some programs that already been set since last year or maybe 2 years before need some adjustment today in terms of the size and also in terms of the time for the implementation. So this is also become the challenges since the pandemic COVID-19 hit the Indonesia. And then the fourth challenge is the constraint the, in terms of coordination, yeah, between the procurement, administration, licensing, and also land acquisition. This is the, the basic challenge actually, not only happen on the pandemic COVID-19, but still, even in this pandemic COVID-19, we still have to handle with the fourth challenge, constraint on coordination. So how the government in Indonesia answer this situation? Previous slide, we can see the challenges in renewable energy, but during the pandemic situation, we have also some extra challenges. So how to progress this, how to face these extra challenges? Actually, the first one, the government try to promote more on renewable energy. The first is as the tools for the economic recovery. So we set the renewable energy development as one of the answer on how the government of Indonesia will recover our economy. We know that by having some limitation on or physical distancing widely in Indonesia, uh, the first sector that suffer the most is the uh, economic sector. Although we have not in recession as Singapore today, but we also suffer deep enough in terms of economy depression, economy. Yes, some say that maybe we will go to the recession also. Indonesia will go to recession by the end of this year. But above that's all. That's all. The government try to manage that by promoting the renewable energy project or program developing this kind of energy will be one of the strategy to recover our economic situation. And then the second one, we prioritize the renewable energy for energy supply. As you see that from the national energy policy, we have stated the target for 23% of renewable energy in 2025. So we are putting the renewable energy as our main supply. Yeah? We are prioritize this one. For example, today we are on the way to compose a new regulation for supporting renewable energy as our priority today. Uh, the government, together with INAGA, with PAPRI and team also, we are composing new regulation on presidential regulation actually on how we can give more support for renewable energy in terms of geothermal, bio, and also various energies such as solar and also hydro. So by prioritizing the renewable energy, we can manage to handle those three extra challenges that happens during this pandemic COVID-19 in Indonesia. Okay, next slide. On this next slide, on this slide, I would like to give a brief overview regarding the geothermal sector. This is specifically for geothermal. The resources is 23.9 gigawatt, and our working areas actually today consists of 64 working areas and 14 special assignment areas. Install capacity 2.1 gigawatt, electricity generation, steam production, and also investment also only for the Q2 this year. We have achieved 28.6% from our target today this year, one billion US dollar, and then the regulation, and also on the right side down on the right side the non-tax state revenue 0.7 trillions only until Q2 this year. The target is 1.4 trillion rupiah. This is our current condition for geothermal. Next slide. On this slide, you can see the roadmap to answer the national energy policy that already been set 23% for renewable energy. In terms of geothermal sector, you can see that we try to develop in 2025. On the green chart, you can see that this is the installed capacity that we've planned, 7.2 gigawatts. Our situation today is on the 2019, you can see the blue chart is 2.1 gigawatt. This is our situation today, and we try to develop the target is 7.2, but mostly after adjusting some projects, we will achieve the 3.3 gigawatts on the blue chart in 2025. This is the most realistic target that we are currently been set today. Most of the project already been have a commitment with the off-taker PLN, and on the way of progressing to construct and achieve the commercial operation. So this is basically the roadmap until 2030. You can see my statement previously that Indonesia will be the largest country in the world that utilize geothermal for power production. uh, United States is the first largest right now. We will surpass United States hopefully in 2025. But this target, of course, need to support by all relevant stakeholders, not not only by the government, but all the stakeholders, including, for example, uh, uh, MNGs and also INAGA and other relevant stakeholders. Okay, next slide. So particularly on geothermal sector, since I was assigned on the geothermal sector right now, I would like to give some deep discussion on these challenges in geothermal sector. Yeah? Basically, these are the most or the main challenges in geothermal. The first is overlapping with conservation area. Conservation in terms of forestry area. So naturally, geothermal located in the mountains. in the volcano, or some areas that are located in highland, for example. And these areas are mostly are forestry areas. And some of the forestry area are set as the conservation forest area. Not to mention in Sumatra Island, we have a huge geothermal resources on that island, in Sumatra Island. But most of our forest on this island, on Sumatra Island, is been set as the World Heritage by the UNESCO. So this area, this forestry area in Sumatra, already been set as the tropical rainforest heritage of Sumatra. So after uh, having this set up actually for the forestry in Sumatra Island, we need extra coordination in order to develop resources that located in those areas, on in those forestry areas. So overlapping with forestry or conservation area is one of the main biggest challenges in geothermal sector. And then the second one is the feasibility of each project, because that Indonesia consists of more than 250 million people. So all of these people not come with the same background. Some of them can accept a higher price for electricity for daily use, but most of them need to be supported by the government in terms of subsidy. So the government cannot uh, put some project just the way it is, or just following the economical normal economic price for each project. The government has a further uh, uh, deep uh, discussion before deciding which project need to be delivered soon. The first main discussion is about the affordability of our people to buy the electricity. Some projects need more investment on the project, and it will be uh, convert into the higher price. So for the higher price project, uh, not become the first priority today. So the government need to choose the sweet project to deliver at the first stage. So the project feasibility become the second challenges in geothermal. And then the financing access. Some of our developers have a limitation on accessing global fund for renewable energy. For example, uh, uh, we have 5 or 6 projects right now that are on the way on accessing uh, financial support from worldwide lender or financial agencies. So if the government leave them to access this financing access by themselves, some of them have not uh, don't have enough ability, don't have enough capability to access those financial institution. There are some limitation in terms of the size of the company, the expert on this company, or maybe their experiment on this sector, the geothermal sector. So basically, the government provide more support to this kind of company in order to help them to access those financial institutions. So the access of the financing is become the third major constraint or challenges in geothermal. And then the fourth is the difference, the gap between the resource and the development. As I mentioned previously, mostly in eastern part of Indonesia, we have some wonderful, excellent geothermal resources on these islands. But since our infrastructure or the development development in eastern part of Indonesia is not as good as in the western part of Indonesia. So there are some limitation on this area. For example, the transmission, the distribution, or the infrastructure, the airport, the port also, and also it makes this eastern part of Indonesia don't have uh, as much as uh, load that need to supply by power compared to western part. So although we have wonderful resources in eastern part, we cannot uh, just build this power plant as big as we want in eastern part because there are not enough load for absorbing those power for the eastern part of Indonesia. So this is kind of the other main challenges in geothermal in Indonesia. And then the last one is the social issue. The social issue that rise up from some areas or some projects. Basically, there are some resistance from the community around the project. But I can make sure for all of you that these issues, I mean the social issues, rise up only on the area that the project still not been finished or still not in operation stage. So during the exploration, during the exploitation or the construction, these issues rise on our community, and they are worried about how this project will be going for the next 30 years because they haven't seen the project running or in production stage. But for the project that already been achieved the commercial operation, we have more than 13 or 14 locations that already been operation today. I can make sure to you that there are no specific social issue that affected the operation of this power plant. So if I can conclude regarding the social issue, this social issue rise because of the lack of information that received by the community. They don't have enough information on how the geothermal will be running for the next 30 years. But after they get this right and accurate information, or maybe they see the project running on their areas, uh, the issues will be it will not be any it will not be any issue anymore. So the social issue rise because that the lack of information that our community receive. So this is a big job. This is a lot of work to do. How to educate our people to get the exact accurate information regarding the geothermal development. Okay, next. So what's the strategy for the geothermal development? You know that we all know that we have a very ambitious target. Some people said that for developing our geothermal to be the largest country in the world utilize geothermal as a power plant. The first, there are nine main strategy on our geothermal development program. The first is preparing the economic incentive. Yeah? We have, I've mentioned before, on the way to compose the new presidential regulation on the tariff. And then the second one, the government right now willing to take some of the risk on the exploration stage because exploration is one of the main hard situation to manage by the private sector. So right now, for the incentive, as a non-fiscal incentive, the government willing to take this exploration risk. Yeah? Basically, the government will do the exploration. After that, this area given to the private sector to develop for the next stage. And then the third one is synergizing our state-owned enterprise. We have a lot of big state-owned enterprise. So we are managing this state-owned enterprise and synergizing their program to support the geothermal development. So, for example, we have a PLN, we have a Pertamina, and we also have a Geodipa and we also have a SMI. These are state-owned enterprise that by synergizing these state-owned enterprises, we can have the same program, and it will be good for the development of geothermal Indonesia. And then the fourth is optimizing our existing field. Yeah? After developing our field, the giant field still consists of very good resources that not been developed yet. So this area actually is not greenfield anymore, and the risk for developing this area is lower than compared to the greenfield. So some of these giant field, we reassess the resources and we try to develop more and more units on this brownfield area. And then the fifth is encouraging the geothermal development in eastern part of Indonesia. As I mentioned before, we have wonderful resources in this part of Indonesia, but not been developed in optimum way. So the next one is creating market demand. Yeah. Have you ever heard the program of the government Indonesia to develop, for example, Flores Geothermal Island? Basically, on Flores Island, we will supply most of the power is from geothermal. This is the big program. So we are creating the demand right now. For example, we are developing the tourism sector over there. We are developing our industry park over there, and all of this kind of sector will be support in terms of the power will support by the geothermal. So creating the market demand. And then the seven is synergizing intergovernmental bodies. This is to answer this problem about the lack of coordination between government agencies. Okay, the number eight is joint monitoring and evaluation. We have managed our procedure right now by involving several ministries in the government in order to create a suitable environment for investment in geothermal. And then the last one is promoting the joint study, capacity building, and knowledge sharing. This is very important to give more education or more to educate more our stakeholders in geothermal by having the joint study, the capacity building, and knowledge sharing. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay. Thank you very much. This is all from me, from the Director of Geothermal, Ministry of ESDM. Thank you, Susan. Back to you.
Thank you, Pak. Thank you, Pak Roni, for the very insightful content.
Welcome.
And moving on to speaker 2, we would like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Priyandaru, who will be presenting Indonesia Geothermal Development, Opportunities and Challenges. Pak Priyandaru, please.
You're muted, Pak Priyandaru.
Okay, sorry. I need to insert my slide first. Okay, now you guys can see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now can I start now?
Yes, Pak, silakan.
Okay, so thank you, moderator, for the opportunity for me to present on behalf of Indonesian Geothermal Association. My name is Priyandaru Effendi, and I'm the president of the INAGA. So I was asked by the committee of the Asia webinar to make a presentation on the opportunities and challenges for geothermal development in Indonesia. So I'm not dealing with the fancy presentation, fancy slide with like Pak Roni, but I'll try to table all of the content that I'm going to present. So let me start with Indonesia geothermal updates. Yeah, so despite of the difficulty last year, where Indonesia is able to add about at about 180 megawatts of installed capacity, so makes the current installed capacity at the level of 2100. And then we are also expecting additional 140 megawatts, yeah, to make the total installed capacity of 2200 level megawatt. And as Pak Roni already mentioned, that the government is targeting the energy mix with contribution of geothermal at 7200 in 2025. So therefore, we are still short of 5,000 megawatt, which we should catch within the 5 years. So basically, we're talking about 1,000 megawatt per year in average. I'm not going to comment any further on that. So also, there's another challenge on the impact of the COVID-19. Yeah, this impact also the geothermal construction progress, and of course, they postpone the decision of the new investment. And Pak Roni already mentioned about the government now is initiating the issuance of the presidential decree on renewable energy. So hoping this decree would provide a strong support to accelerate Indonesia geothermal for the post-pandemic situation. And I would like to use this event as well to promote the association convention, visual convention, starting from next week, from 8 to 10, 2020. So hopefully everyone registers to this convention held by INAGA. Okay, next slide is the investment opportunities. Of course, this country is blessed with abundance of renewable energy, especially geothermal, at some 25 gigawatt hour, yeah, and then with the government very ambitious development target in 2035, contribution of geothermal at 77.2 gigawatt hour. And then, of course, the assumption is because of this country is supported by high growth energy consumption, yeah, normally, but not recently because of the pandemics, but normally at 7 to 8% a year, and also supporting by high economic growth at 5 to 6% every year annually. So, and also the government's strong political will to develop renewable for only for two reasons. First, the sustainability, yeah, to support the sustainable development of this country, and also the emission reduction to answer on the global concern over the climate change. And the last one is also important, that relatively conducive investment climate of the political stability. Okay, next slide is, I saw this, there is someone asking about the where the installed capacity coming from. So this, I provide you the table. So this is the 2130.6 megawatt coming from. Yeah, it's coming from 14 geothermal working area, where Star Energy is the biggest producer in the country today. After their successfully acquisition 2 years ago, Chevron, yeah, they acquired Chevron 2 years ago, that add up their production now at 870 megawatts. Second rank is Pertamina Geothermal Energy. They are making approximately 650 megawatt. And the last one, the third one, is the Sarula Operation Limited. They just COD about 2 or 3 years ago, and their installed capacity today is 330 megawatts. So these are the producer that contribute to current installed capacity in Indonesia. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit on how we, about the time frame and how the sequence of getting production from the greenfield up to the COD. So at the year zero, is when the time we secure the business license of geothermal. And then at the same time, this is according to the current regulation. Yeah, we signed a pre-transaction agreement with the buyer, single buyer, which is PT-PLN. So it's basically just like a sub agreement. Yeah, it contains the range of tariff. So it's basically still indicative. And then after that is you are required to start doing the exploration, starting from the GNG study and then acquisition. And then you finally do the exploration drilling. After you're done with your exploration drilling, you produce what we call is feasibility study. And then after that, you have to go back to PLN for negotiating the binding terms of PPA. That includes also the fixed tariff. So basically, you are exposed for a big risk for spending money without having a binding agreement before you spend, before starting the exploration. And then after that, you secure the PPA, you secure the environmental permit, you secure the what you call the EPC contract, and then you go for financing. It takes about 1.5 years. This is based on my experience in my company. And after that, you do the construction development. So it takes statistically in Indonesia about 10 to 12 years to develop project from green to COD. Yeah. So this is the next is I'm going to show you about. I'm going to share you the pictures on how difficult, how expensive, how risk dealing with geothermal business. So because most of geothermal prospect is located in the remote area, the area that is not yet touched by the development. Yeah. So this is basically is the picture that I took from my project. Yeah, so in order before you start the drilling, exploration drilling, you have to build your access road and also well paths. Yeah, so this is what it takes. So we were working in the level of altitude level of 2600 above sea level. And then after we complete the infrastructure, yeah, for the access road and also the drilling paths, we are able to move the drilling rig to start doing the exploration. And after that, of course, we have, after the exploration, how many wells depends on the company's appetite on how much installed capacity they're going to develop, yeah, to construct. So you have to test the well to confirm what is your proposed installed capacity for with PLN. So it's basically you have to test the well to make sure how much reserve you have and how much deliverability that you will be able to deliver to PLN. And after that, you secure the financing and all related required document to support the next step, which is you're going to run parallel the construction of powerhouse and also the continuation of the drilling. This is what we call the exploitation drilling. Yeah. So this is what we did. And finally, when you put the well on production, the installed capacity running to dispatch to PLN, and this is what you got. It's very nice and very clean, but it takes difficult, it takes risk, it takes lots of money and effort to get until this point. Okay. Aroni already shared about the challenges, which is he shared the right one, but I just took the four biggest challenges in geothermal exploration. First is Aroni already mentioned about tariff gap. So this is long overdue problem since the beginning of the journey of geothermal. We always have the tariff issue because because PLN's tariff is regulated by government, so therefore they have limitation. They have difficulty in purchasing the electricity from geothermal based on the expected return of the developers. So there is a gap, always a gap between our price based on our expected return and their affordability represented by the production cost. Yeah, and this is the game or the rule that a government will have to step in. And then frequent changes in regulation. This is another that we are facing in this country. That's why Aroni already mentioned that government now is planning to initiate regulation, presidential decree or regulation. Is basically just to mitigate frequent changes in regulation. Yeah, and then we're dealing with the third challenge is we're dealing with single buyer, which is PLN, state-owned utility company, and actually is the nature of our business is just like oil and gas, but the difference is the product of oil and gas can be treated as a commodity, so they can sell everywhere, and then the price is driven by the market. But for geothermal, it's different. Although we also face almost the same risks upfront, but we will end up with PLN as a single buyer, with the condition that the purchasing price of PLN is governed or is regulated by the government. And then the last one is the presence of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll show you about what we are having today with regards to the COVID-19 pandemics. So this is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemics to our project. Of course, it triggers the reduction in electricity demand. PLN already told us that they are facing now minus 10% of growth, yeah, and then expecting to recover this within more than 1 year. And then, of course, we are also anticipating the delay of the projects, yeah, and require additional costs for isolation protocol. We have to comply with the protocol of 14 days isolation, and this means that we have to pay the people for standby, yeah, for isolation, and also some other related to the isolation protocol. And then equipment mobilization. There are some equipment coming from overseas. And basically because of the pandemics, some country facing the lockdown, so cannot cannot send the equipment right on time. So this also promote the delay. And finally, it's also additional cost because of health screening. We are dealing now with about 2,000 people working on the project, and then we have to do the screen of the health screen. So it's basically there's a antibody, rapid test, antigen, rapid test, and also the PCR. So, and then the next impact is weakening in rupiah exchange rate. This will hurt PLN later on, because PLN is selling their electricity to the people in rupiah, but they have to purchase the electricity from us in US dollar. And then, of course, I have mentioned about the postponement of new investment decision. And in the end, if everything comes into one, then there will create the unemployment. And this is my last presentation. So conclusion and way forward, of course, Indonesia is blessed with the high potential of renewable energy. And for geothermal especially, it can be used to minimize the role of fossil fuel as a baseload energy demand later on. So very last investment, of course, and then most of the investment coming from the private sectors. So it means that present huge investment opportunity, but with condition, of course, energy pricing policy is one of the very important requirement. Make sure that both happy, the investor is happy, and also PLN is also happy. So government in this case is strongly required to involve, to intervene, to make sure that both sides happy. And then clear regulatory framework. So hopefully after the issuance of the president's decree is there will not be frequent regulation changing anymore. And this is the last one is, this country is suffering with the negative growth last quarter, and it is also expected that this quarter will also be negative. Yeah, and then for the recovery after the pandemic is, one of the solutions is to boost up the investment. And then geothermal hereby declares its readiness to support, to help government to recover the economics by contributing to more investment, provided that the energy processing policy is the most important one, will be satisfied to the investors when the presidential decree is out later on. So I guess that's from me, and thank you for listening to my presentation. And back to you, Mrs. Moderator.
Thank you, Pak Priyandaru, for the impressive presentation. I'm sure today the audience have learned a lot. The final presentation today will be from Mr. Florian Kitt, who will be presenting challenges in the geothermal industry. Mr. Florian, please.
Can you allow me to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Now it works. Give me a second. 1 second, please. I can't find. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. While I'm looking for the presentation and the shared screen, let me introduce myself. My name is Florian Kitt. I work for the Asian Development Bank as energy specialist in Indonesia. And I'm currently leading our newest project on geothermal energy with GeoDeepa. In my presentation, I will focus on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on geothermal development in Indonesia, as I requested and as I think is the focus of this seminar. I would like to thank both Pak Roni and Pak Priyandaru for the excellent presentations. We obviously agree with a lot of the challenges. I would like to note that we recently completed an independent analysis of Indonesia's energy infrastructure sector, which is available from both Bappenas and ADB websites and provides an overview of the entirety of the electricity sector challenges in particular, and also the renewables. In 2015, we also completed a guide on geothermal energy development in Indonesia, which provides, I think, a very in-depth overview of the particular challenges pertinent to the geothermal sector in the country, which Pak Roni and Pak Priyandaru have outlined. I may also note before diving into the presentation that the ADB is probably if not just one of the largest financiers of renewable energy in Indonesia. We finance 25% of all geothermal energy in the country, 25% of all solar PV, and 50% of all wind. Our newest project, which we just signed with the government about 2 weeks ago, is a project loan of about 335 million US dollars to Geodipa, a state-owned enterprise, as Pak Roni noted, and for the expansion of 55 megawatt of the geothermal power plant in Dieng and 55 megawatt in Patua. So it's a brownfield project, and as Pak Priyandaru noted, we hope that it will go much faster than a greenfield project. In terms of technology, just a background, Patua 2 uses a single flash and Dieng 2 combined cycle plant and an ORC turbine and an underground transmission line in Dieng in order not to disturb the farming activity there. We're also drilling down about 3 kilometers in order not to affect any of the water that the farmers are taking there. As noted, loan signed on 19th of August and executing agency and borrower Geodipa Energy. I would like to come immediately also with a view to time to the COVID-19 impacts, and I would want to reiterate what Priyandaru said. I mean, first of all, we see a decrease in electricity demand. As we don't know how long the pandemic will last, this could obviously have significant impacts on future electricity sector and geothermal development. And we're already expecting a decrease in PLN's investment pipeline. We, from our side, are aware that there is a postponement of 5 geothermal working area bids. And we think that this will really affect the, let's say, trajectory and planning for geothermal. So in our view, everything will be postponed, and we will probably see much slower development in the future to come. We're fortunate in the project with Geodipa that our PPA has been negotiated before COVID-19 and that the project will fall under the must-run regulation ESDM 4 2020, which prioritizes renewable energy. We really think there's a big need, and we will see this, I think, a lot of the questions from participants are related to when will the new IUPTL come out. We're also waiting for this, and we are very much looking forward to seeing what the decrease will be. So really, in terms of the pandemic, much will depend on a 2021-2022 recovery and the reassessment of the generation pipeline. I want to add, I didn't put that on the slides. I mean, I fully agree with Pak Priyandaru that PLN's financing, which has been impacted massively already in the course of this year, will play a major role. If the situation continues in terms of full USD pricing of IPP contracts and geothermal just is more expensive than, for example, solar PV, this could obviously impact geothermal development further and well, push out the timelines that Pak Roni presented further into the future. So I think we will most likely see in 2021 where this will lead us, what the reductions will be, and how this will affect the geothermal sector. But we do think that the development will be less rapid than expected and planned. In terms of the impact on actual projects, we also fully agree with Pagroni. The restrictions on physical movement are a serious concern, especially for us at present. While Pagroni was talking, I think, about an existing project, we're just starting project implementation. That means that we will have to bring in a number of experts, workers, etc., from other countries than Indonesia. So a lot will not just depend on Indonesia's regulations, but the regulations from other countries. Currently, I think, according to my knowledge, what is needed in terms to enter Indonesia is a special permit and request from one of the ministries, so that a consultant team or an international expert team or project team could enter the country. Then you have the restrictions on movement, quarantine, etc. All of this will obviously affect project development and delay project development and implementation. In addition, from an ADB point of view, I mean, we're a financing institution. I have to monitor and supervise all of the projects we're financing very closely. This is also challenging because my institution currently does not allow any travel within Indonesia. So we have to also come up and be very innovative in coordination and close discussions with our client and with the government with new measures for project monitoring and supervision. Basically also thinking about virtual ways, I mean, for example, using drones, using video from mobile phones, etc. Obviously, this can never be as good as a physical and direct visit to the project site. And we will have to see how this pans out. Now, I don't want to be just, you know, negative and gloomy in looking forward. I also think that we have really a big opportunity. First of all, geothermal could be one of the key measures for green recovery of Indonesia. Our project already contributes to that in that it's a clean infrastructure and investment project supporting economic and climate goals. It will create jobs, both on the direct project implementation side, but also locally for communities, revenues for local governments. A lot will depend in that how, again, the new RUPTL and government priorities pan out and how the financing the tariffs under the new PAPRES pan out. So there could be, obviously, if the government pushes geothermal more than other technologies, and that with serious money, really an opportunity that geothermal could close some of the fallouts from COVID-19 and create new opportunities and help Indonesia grow again. I think we're nearly out of time, so I would actually stop there with these brief comments, say thank you to everyone, and I'm ready to answer any questions you might have. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Florian, for the useful sharing. We are now move on to the Q&A session for today. I just pick up two questions from our audience. Maybe the first questions will be for Paroni. What major effects or changes could it be felt after the pandemic? Paroni?
Yes. Thank you, Susan. The major effect of changes after the pandemic. Well, the first, as we all know, that this pandemic COVID-19 situation affected all the sectors, not only the power sectors or the energy sectors, but for the power sector, for the geothermal sector particularly, we are not developed by this sector only. We supported by other sectors also, for example, industrial. So this pandemic situation, since that it's also affected, for example, the manufacture sector and the workers, as Florian mentioned also, the physical distancing rules also cause some problems. So after, if we can manage, I mean, the geothermal sector, the project still ongoing process to achieve the commercial, but we also depending on other sectors. For example, the manufacture. Most of the equipment for the geothermal power plants are comes from overseas. So if you ask what's the effect after the pandemic, well, the situation is like give like a domino effect actually. Okay? We cannot be fine. I mean, the geothermal sector cannot be fine by itself if the other sector is not also uh, 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 overcome the situation. So we will still, I mean, the geothermal sector we will still feel the effect, maybe for the next 1 or 2 years after this pandemic, even when the next year, hopefully we get the vaccine for this virus, so we can handle most of the situation. But after it's being on the new normal situation, to become the real normal back to the last year or situation, maybe it takes more than 1 year. So uh, the first one, what major effects the change or could be felt after the pandemic? The first one, that we need to adjust or reshape our program to meet the situation for the next 1 or 2 years. Yeah? The situation may be not full normal for the next 1 year. We do have the vaccine, for example, but not widely distributed. So, and other from that, the situation, for example, for the airlines and for the manufacture sector, to supply the equipment, maybe not in fully recovered after the pandemic. So it's also affected the geothermal sector. So the first one is the domino effect of the COVID-19 situation or pandemic to the geothermal sector. And the second one is that the pandemic situation of this COVID-19 in geothermal sector, Indonesia particularly, gives some changes on how the government spending their budget. And you know that we have set our budget plan for next year, and unfortunately, it has to be affected by the uh, uh, strategy to handle the COVID-19 for next year. So basically, we have some incentives, fiscal incentive, for example, for the geothermal sector. But to answer the pandemic COVID-19 situation, the government have to reshape it, reallocate it, and recalculate it, the budget spending for the other sector. The first priority is for health situation, for handling the COVID-19. So if I may say that what left after the pandemic situation for next year, for example, there will be some affected on the how the government spending the budget next year, and uh, more or less it will be affected the spending on government spending on in terms of financial fiscal incentive for geothermal. But above all of these two kind of affected that maybe we will still feel for the next 1 or 2 years, geothermal sector has a big opportunity in Indonesia. The first is the oil and gas situation worldwide and globally. We understand that the oil prices is becomes the lowest ever situation, and the oil and gas sector maybe is not as good or as attractive as 5 or 10 years before. So having this situation, we we are believe that we are uh, we are optimized that investors are looking for right place to put their money. So this is the chance for geothermal sector to take the opportunity to bring the money to the geothermal sector. Maybe oil and gas need 2, 3, or 4 years to recover. So this is the time for geothermal sector to get more to take more parts. This is a good situation for investing, and we have some uniques in this sector of energy compared to coal or oil and gas or any conventional energy. So there are two effects that maybe still feel we still feel that after one or 2 years ahead, but we also have opportunity to minimize those effects. Okay. Thank you, Susan.
Okay, thank you, Pak. How about Pak Priyandaru? Maybe you want to add on something?
Sorry, I guess it's just to complement with what Pak Roni just said is basically we are expecting a recovery soon. What I'm saying is this pandemic to get over soon, and then to let the company to recover the economics, as soon as pandemic is over. And then, as I told you in my presentation, is one way to help the economic recovery is through the investment. And geothermal today, the investment is not moving forward. Is not because of it's not driven by the pandemic, but the most important one is about the tariff issue and also the certainty of the regulation. So now we are expecting that the new regulation president decree to be out soon, and the price we should be able to be resolved in that the regulation, so to allow the investment in geothermal is moving forward. Because for us is in the industry is geothermal in this country is so sexy, because we are being blessed with the potential resources, and I guess it's for Pak Florian, according to Pak Florian, is my understanding is financing the geothermal is much easier than the coal fire plant, right, Pak Florian?
Florian, you want to say something?
That is a question that I think it depends on the financing institution. The ADB does not finance any coal-fired power plants anymore. We do still finance gas, midstream and downstream, and then sustainable and clean energy. I think the question that Suzanne wanted me to answer was the ADB's plans for geothermal development and financing in the next 5 years. And let me say, we're a multilateral development bank. Indonesia is our 6th largest member state. So Indonesia owns us. So I'm kind of working for Sri Mulyani, right? And reporting to her staff that's on our board of executive directors, our governance board. And we are at the service of the Indonesian government for the government's clean and sustainable energy sector plans, reforms and investments. We have a portfolio of about $2 billion per year in Indonesia, which this year might be increased due to COVID-19. So we are really ready to work with Geodipa, with ALN, with Pertamina on the SOE side, as well as obviously with Pagroni and his colleagues in the Ministry on policies, regulations and reforms. But we also have a private sector department that invests very strongly in private sector enterprises. We financed Sarula, which Pak Priyandaru noted, as well as Muara Labo and several other geothermal investments. So we stand ready to support the government, and honestly, we hope there will be more. I have in our country operations business plan, which is a 4 to 5 years plan, which we agree with the government, already noted that we would obviously be ready to support Geodipa Energy on Dieng and Patua 3 and 4. And we would also be ready to finance any future tangible investments by other players I think both on the private sector side, but that depends on the risk assessment as well as on the state side.
Thank you, everyone. We have now come to the end of the session. Once again, we would like to thank Pak Roni, Pak Priyandaru, and Mr. Florian for joining us today at this amazing webinar. Thank you all for attending too, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next webinar. If you have any queries regarding our today's webinar, please feel free to email us at indo@asiawebinars.com or log on to www.asiawebinars.com for our future webinar schedule. Till then, stay safe during this period. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, and thanks to all of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
speakers. Appreciate your time very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Florian. Thank you, Pak Pri.
Thank you, Pak Roni. Thank
See
you.
you soon.
See you next time.
See you later.
Stay
Okay.
safe.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Hopefully in person.